I knew something was wrong the moment she hesitated to introduce me. Not because she forgot my name, not because the room was loud, but because she looked at me first. The way people look at a decision they're no longer sure about. Uh, this is Alex, she said eventually, already turning away. That pause stayed with me longer than the night itself. I didn't confront her about it. I didn't need to. At that point, I'd already learned that asking questions in that relationship only led to carefully edited answers. We'd been together for just over 7 months. Long enough to matter. Long enough to ignore red flags because you've already invested time, emotion, and hope. Her name was Lila. She worked in brand strategy for startups, the kind that burned investor money on rooftop events and called it community building. She loved words like trajectory, leverage, and optics. She said them casually, like everyone grew up speaking that language. I didn't. I worked as an operations supervisor at a regional distribution company. It wasn't glamorous, but it paid well, and I was good at it. I liked systems. I liked reliability. I liked knowing that if something broke at 2 a.m., I could fix it. Lila said she admired that about me. But admiration, I learned, isn't the same as pride. The first few months were easy. Quiet dinners, long walks, talking about books and childhood stories. She told me I was grounding. That word came up a lot. "You make me feel calm," she said once, curled up on my couch. I need that. I believed her. What I didn't notice then was how rarely I existed in her public life. Her Instagram was a highlight reel of rooftop bars, conferences, group selfies with captions like "Power People Only." I appeared exactly 0 times. When I joked about it, she laughed. "I keep my relationship private," she said. "It's healthier." I accepted that. When her friends came up in conversation, they were always described in terms of status. Emily just raised her Series A. Jordan's dating a VC now. Mark sold his company. Again. When she talked about me, it was different. Alex is really nice. Alex is stable. Alex doesn't stress me out. None of those are bad things, but none of them sound like someone you're proud to show off. The first real crack showed up around month 4. She invited me to a networking mixer her company was hosting. Super chill, she said. Nothing fancy. I bought a new button-down anyway. Clean, simple. I wanted to look like I belonged. The venue was a converted warehouse with exposed brick and a bar that served drinks with ingredients I couldn't pronounce. Everyone wore black, gray, or something that looked intentionally effortless. I stood next to Lila while she floated through conversations like she'd rehearsed them. This is when I noticed a pattern. When someone asked what she did, she leaned in, smiled, explained her role with precision. When someone asked about me, she answered for me. "Oh, Alex? He works in logistics," she'd say quickly. "Very hands-on, like I was furniture." One guy laughed and said, "So like, warehouse stuff?" I opened my mouth to answer. Lila beat me to it. "Yeah, sort of," she said. "But he's great at what he does." The guy nodded politely and drifted away. I felt small, not because of what I do, but because of how easily she minimized it. On the ride home, I finally said something. "You didn't really have to explain my job for me." She sighed, like I'd complained about traffic. "I was just simplifying," she said. "People don't really care about details at those things." "Still," I said, keeping my voice even. "It would have been nice to speak for myself." She looked at me, confused. "Why are you being sensitive?" That word again. Sensitive. It ended the conversation. After that night, things shifted. Not dramatically, subtly. In ways that are easy to dismiss if you don't want to believe what they mean. She stopped inviting me to certain events, mostly work people. Probably boring for you. Not really your scene. She started mentioning her ex more. Not directly, casually, strategically. Ryan used to love this place. Ryan hated small towns. Ryan always said I was meant for bigger things. Ryan worked in private equity. Ryan traveled. Ryan wore watches that cost more than my car. I told myself I wasn't jealous. I wasn't. I was observant. By month 6, the imbalance was impossible to ignore. I'd met her friends. She hadn't met my parents. Every time I brought it up, there was a reason. They're busy. It's too soon. Family stuff stresses me out. When my mom sent cookies she'd baked, Lila smiled politely and asked if we could give them away. They're sweet, she said, but kind of old school. I laughed it off. That's what I did best in that relationship. Laugh things off. The night everything finally broke didn't start dramatically. It was a celebration dinner for Lila. Not her birthday, not an anniversary. Her company had landed a major client, and she wanted to celebrate with everyone. She booked a private room at an upscale restaurant downtown. The kind of place where the menu doesn't list prices and the chairs are heavier than they need to be. When she told me, I hesitated. Do you want it to be just us one night? I asked. We could do something smaller too. She looked at me like I'd suggested canceling Christmas. This is important, she said. These people matter. I nodded. The guest list was 14 people. I recognized 3 names. The rest were colleagues, friends of friends, and, noticeably, Ryan. I stared at the list longer than I should have. You invited Ryan? I asked. She didn't look up from her phone. It's not a big deal. We're adults. That was her favorite way to shut down conversations. The night of the dinner, I arrived early. She was already there, laughing with a group near the bar. She looked incredible, confident, radiant, completely in her element. I walked up, kissed her cheek. She smiled briefly. Oh, hey, you can put your jacket over there. Not I'm glad you're here? Not you look nice, just logistics. I should have left then. I didn't. I took my seat near the end of the long table. Not next to her. That spot was taken by Ryan. She didn't assign seats intentionally, I'm sure. It just worked out that way. As the night went on, conversations overlapped. Glasses refilled. Laughter rose and fell. I tried to engage. I really did. But every time I spoke, it felt like I was interrupting a story that had already been decided. People talked about exits, valuations, moves to New York or Austin, about next steps. Ryan leaned back at one point and said loudly, "Some people are just passing through phases. Others are building toward something permanent." A few people nodded. Lila laughed. She didn't look at me. That's when I realized the pause from months earlier wasn't hesitation. It was foreshadowing. And the worst part? I still didn't know how bad it was about to get. I kept telling myself to relax, that this was just my imagination filling in gaps it wanted to see, that adults don't compete like this, that I was projecting insecurity where there was none. So I stayed quiet. I listened. I smiled when appropriate. I watched. Ryan didn't do anything overt. He didn't need to. His confidence filled the space without effort, like he'd never questioned whether he belonged in a room. He talked about deals he was advising on, about a possible move overseas, about how exhausting it was to keep up with opportunities. People leaned in when he spoke. When I spoke, they nodded politely and glanced back at him. At one point, someone asked how Lila and Ryan knew each other. Old life, she said lightly. We go way back. She said it fondly. Too fondly, Ryan smirked, before we realized what we actually wanted. Lila laughed again. Still didn't look at me. The waiter came around with menus, thick, leather-bound. Everyone ordered confidently without looking at prices. I hesitated. Not because I couldn't afford dinner. I could, but because I hated the unspoken test behind it. Order wrong, and you reveal something. Order right, and you're trying too hard. I ordered something simple. Ryan ordered something rare, imported, described in a way that sounded like a resume. Wine followed. Bottles chosen by consensus, not cost. Lila leaned toward him at one point and said, "You always had good taste. Always." Past tense. She never once said that to me. As appetizers arrived, the conversation shifted toward relationships. Someone joked about dating apps. Someone else complained about people who plateau. Then Emily, one of Lila's coworkers, raised her glass. "Okay, can we just take a second?" she said. "This night is about Lila." Everyone murmured agreement. She stood, smiling wide. To Lila, for landing the account everyone said was impossible, for always knowing where she's going, and for never settling. The word hit harder than it should have. Never settling. Glasses clinked. Applause followed. Lila stood too, waving it off. "You're all ridiculous," she said. "But thank you. Really." She scanned the table, enjoying the attention. Then her eyes landed on me. I smiled back, unsure why my chest felt tight. "And to Alex," she added suddenly, "I guess I should explain him." My smile froze. A few heads turned toward me, curious now. "This is Alex," she said, gesturing vaguely. "He's been around for a while." Around. Not with me. Not my partner. Someone laughed awkwardly. "Hez very steady," she continued. "Very supportive." Supportive. Like a role, not a person. Ryan raised his glass. "Every journey needs a pit stop," he said. "Helps you refuel before the next leg." A few people laughed. Others shifted in their seats. Lila laughed too. "Exactly," she said. "That's actually a perfect way to put it." The room went quiet in that special way where no one knows whether they're supposed to keep laughing or stop. I felt heat rise in my neck. I waited. Surely she'd realize how that sounded. Surely she'd correct it. Surely she'd look at me and soften it. She didn't. Instead, she added, "I mean, let's be honest. Not everyone you date is meant to last forever." Her eyes locked onto mine. "You know that, right, Alex?" It wasn't a question. Something in me went very still. I'd imagined this moment before. Not this exact version, but some kind of crossroads where I'd have to decide whether to swallow something sharp or finally spit it out. I stood up slowly. The movement alone drew attention. Chairs creaked. Forks paused midair. "Yeah," I said calmly. "I know that." Lila smiled, relieved. "Good," she said. "I didn't want you to—" I reached into my jacket pocket and pulled out my wallet. Her smile faltered. I counted bills carefully. Exact amount for my meal, my drinks, plus tip. I placed them neatly on the table. "What are you doing?" she asked quietly. "Closing my tab," I said. Ryan raised an eyebrow. "Everything okay, man?" I looked at him, then at Lila. "You just called me a pit stop," I said, "in front of 14 people. She laughed nervously. "Oh my God, don't be dramatic. It was a metaphor." "Yeah," I said, "and it was accurate. That's the problem." Her face hardened. "You're embarrassing me." I nodded. "That makes sense. Sit down," she whispered. "We'll talk about this later." I shook my head. "No, we won't." The silence stretched. Emily looked down at her plate. Someone cleared their throat. "I've spent months trying to earn a place in a room you never planned to keep me in," I continued. "You didn't slip up tonight. You told the truth." "That's not true," Lila snapped. "You're twisting it." "I'm really not," I said. "You've been very consistent." She stood now too, anger breaking through embarrassment. "You're being insecure because you can't keep up with this world." There it was, not subtle, not hidden, just honest. I took a breath. "Then you shouldn't have brought me into it," I said. "You shouldn't have kept me around for comfort while you waited for something better." Ryan leaned back, clearly enjoying the show. Lila's voice dropped. "You're making a scene." "No," I said. "I'm leaving one." I turned to the table. "Enjoy dinner." Then I walked out. I didn't rush. I didn't slam doors. I just left. The air outside felt colder than it should have. I stood on the sidewalk for a moment, hands shaking slightly, not from anger, from adrenaline. My phone buzzed almost immediately. Lila. "Where are you going?" Leela. "Come back. You're overreacting." Lila, please. I didn't answer. I got into my car and sat there, staring at the steering wheel. I wasn't heartbroken. I wasn't even surprised. I was relieved. Because the question I'd been avoiding for months finally had an answer. I wasn't confused anymore. I wasn't sensitive. I'd just been convenient. An hour later, my phone rang. Lila, I let it go to voicemail. A few minutes later, another call, then another, then a message. I didn't mean it like that. You know I care about you. I stared at the screen. Caring isn't something you announce after someone walks away. It's something you prove before they have to. I started the car. As I drove home, one thought repeated itself, over and over, steady and undeniable. I didn't lose anything tonight. I finally stopped losing myself. I didn't go home that night. Not because I was running, because I didn't trust myself to be alone yet. I drove to my friend Marcus' place. He opened the door, took one look at my face and didn't ask questions. Just stepped aside and handed me a beer. You want to talk? He asked. Eventually, I said. Not yet. We sat on opposite ends of the couch, some late-night game murmuring on TV. The adrenaline slowly drained out of me, leaving behind something quieter. Clarity. At 11:18 p.m., my phone buzzed again. Lila. I didn't answer. At 11:26, another call. At 11:34, a voicemail. Marcus glanced over. You gonna pick up? No, good. The voicemail transcript popped up anyway. Alex, hey, I'm sorry if that came out wrong. I was joking. Everyone jokes like that. You know I care about you. Can you please call me back? I deleted it. She called again at midnight, then texted. You embarrassed me. You left me there. That wasn't fair. The tone shifted fast. By 12:30 a.m., the texts were longer, softer. I shouldn't have said that. I was trying to keep things light. I didn't mean you weren't important. At 1:07 a.m., please, I don't want this to end like this. I put my phone face down. Marcus watched me carefully. You okay? I thought about it. Yeah, I said finally. I think I actually am. That surprised both of us. I slept better on his couch than I had in months. The next morning, I woke up to 14 missed calls and a wall of unread messages. I didn't read them. Not because I was being dramatic, because I already had the information I needed. When someone shows you where you stand, believing them isn't cruelty. It's self-respect. By Sunday afternoon, she switched tactics. Anger. So this is it? You're just going to ghost me? After everything I did for you? I smiled at that one. What she meant was, after everything you allowed me to do to you. Then came the guilt. I told my mom about you. Do you know how stupid that makes me look? Then the bargaining. Just coffee. 10 minutes. We don't have to fight. I stayed silent. On Monday, she showed up at my apartment. I wasn't there. My building manager called me. There's a woman downstairs asking for you, he said. She seems upset. I told him not to let her up. She waited in the lobby for almost an hour. I watched on the security app as she paced, sat, stood again, wiped her face, checked her phone. Eventually, she left. That should have been the end. It wasn't. She started reaching outward. She called my sister. Sophie called me immediately after. Did something happen with Lila? Yeah, I said. It's over. She said you misunderstood a joke, Sophie said flatly. And then she called you emotionally limited. I laughed once. Short. Humorless. What did you say? I asked. That anyone who humiliates their partner in public doesn't deserve a private conversation afterward, Sophie replied. Then I blocked her. That night, Marcus said something that stuck with me. She's not upset she hurt you, he said. She's upset she lost control of the narrative. He was right, because over the next week, the story started traveling without her permission. Emily stopped responding to her messages. Apparently, she'd been deeply uncomfortable that night and didn't like being part of it. Another coworker unfollowed her. Then another. Someone she'd introduced me to months earlier ran into me at a coffee shop and said quietly, "Hey, I saw what happened. That was messed up. Word gets around when you cross a line in public. Lila didn't handle that well." She posted vague Instagram stories, quotes about outgrowing people, about choosing yourself, about not dimming your light for someone else's insecurity. I never watched them. Marcus did, and filled me in. "She's spiraling," he said. "Just not quietly." 2 weeks after the dinner, she emailed me. Subject line, "Please read this." I hesitated. Then I opened it. It was long, carefully written, every paragraph shaped to sound introspective. She talked about pressure, about expectations, about how she'd grown up learning that value was something you proved publicly. She admitted she'd been afraid, that she'd used humor to deflect, that she'd let other people's approval matter more than it should have. "You were never temporary to me," she wrote. "I was just scared to admit how much you mattered." I read it twice. Then I closed my laptop. Marcus watched my face. "Well?" "It says everything I needed to hear," I said. 8 months ago. "You gonna respond?" "No, I deleted it. Not out of anger, out of completion. Around that time, something interesting happened. I got busier, not in a performative way, in a focused one. Work picked up. I was put in charge of a process overhaul that had been sitting untouched for years. Long hours. Real responsibility. I started going to the gym again. Early mornings. Quiet progress. I had dinner with my parents and actually enjoyed it without feeling like I had to rush somewhere else. One night, my dad said, "You seem lighter." "I am?" I said. I meant it. Lila, meanwhile, kept circling back to what was familiar. She reached out to Ryan. They met for drinks. I didn't hear about it until much later, but the story was predictable. He flirted, he reminisced, he stayed charming. They went back to his place. In the morning, she woke up alone. There was a text. "Fun seeing you. Take care." That was it. No follow-up, no promises, no permanence. For the first time, she was on the other side of the metaphor. By the 3rd month, she tried one last thing. She messaged me. "I still have some of your stuff. When can I bring it by?" It was the first message I replied to. "Leave it with the front desk." She responded almost instantly. "Can I just give it to you myself?" "No, please, Alex, 5 minutes. There's nothing left to say." She showed up anyway. The front desk called again. "She's asking if she can just come up," the manager said. "Please tell her no," I replied. "If she doesn't leave, call security." She waited. I watched from my window as she finally walked back out, box in her arms, shoulders shaking. I didn't feel satisfaction. I felt distance. And distance, I learned, is peace. A month later, something else shifted. I was invited to speak at an internal company event. Nothing flashy, just recognition for the work I'd done. My parents came, Sophie came, Marcus came. People listened when I spoke. They asked questions. They took notes. For the first time in a long while, I felt fully present in my own life. That's when I saw her. She stood near the back of the room, unsure whether to approach. I didn't wave. I didn't look away. I finished my conversation first. Eventually, she walked over. "Hi," she said. "Hey," I replied. There was no tension, just space. "I heard about the event," she said. "You did really well." "Thanks." Pause. "I've been thinking about you," she added. "Okay." She looked frustrated, like she expected more. I guess I just thought, after everything, I said gently. "We're done." She swallowed. "I was wrong about you." I met her eyes. "No, you were honest about yourself." She opened her mouth to argue. I didn't stay to hear it. I turned back to my family. Sophie squeezed my arm. "You good?" "Yeah," I said. I really am. And for the first time, I knew that was true. I thought that would be the last time I saw her. Life doesn't always wrap things up that neatly. A few months later, the city hosted a large industry conference downtown. Not flashy, not influencer heavy. Actual professionals, panels, discussions, substance. My company had a small booth. Nothing impressive, just clean design, clear messaging, and people who knew what they were talking about. I was mid-conversation with a vendor when I heard my name. Not loudly, not dramatically. Just enough to register. Alex? I turned. It was Lila. She looked different. Not worse, just stripped down. No performative confidence. No carefully managed energy. She wore a simple jacket, minimal makeup, like someone who hadn't rehearsed this version of herself yet. "Hi," I said. She nodded, clearly nervous now. "I didn't know you'd be here. I work in operations," I said. "These events are kind of my thing." She gave a small, uncomfortable smile. "I've seen your name a few times," she said. "People speak highly of you." Okay, there it was again. Expectation. She waited. I didn't fill the silence. "I just wanted to say," she continued, "I get it now." I studied her face. "Get what?" I asked. "What you felt," she said quietly. "That night. And before it. I didn't realize how much I was measuring everything. People, relationships, like they were steps." I nodded once. "I thought I was choosing ambition," she said. "But really, I was just scared of standing still." I let that sit between us. "You don't owe me anything," she added quickly. I wanted you to know I've been doing a lot of thinking." "I believe you," I said. Her shoulders relaxed slightly. "And?" she asked. "And nothing," I replied. Her face fell just a little. "I'm not angry," I said. "I'm not hurt anymore either. I just don't live there now." She swallowed. "I lost a lot after that night," she admitted. "Friends, work opportunities. People saw me differently." "I know," I said. "You do?" "Yes. Did you ever think about reaching out?" she asked. I answered honestly. "No." That one word landed harder than anything else I could have said. She nodded slowly. "I guess that's fair." We stood there, surrounded by noise and movement. Two people who once shared something real, and no longer did. "I hope things work out for you," I said. "Truly." She managed a small smile. "You too." I turned back to my booth. She didn't follow. Later that evening, as I packed up, Marcus texted me. "Saw Lila at the conference. You okay?" I smiled at my phone. More than okay. Driving home, I thought about how close I'd come to shrinking myself for someone else's comfort. About how easy it is to mistake tolerance for love, convenience for connection. I didn't win anything by leaving that dinner. I didn't get revenge. I didn't get closure speeches or dramatic apologies that fixed everything. What I got was quieter. I got my self-respect back. I stopped auditioning, stopped explaining, stopped hoping someone else would finally decide I was enough. And the strange thing? Once I stopped trying to prove my value, the right people never questioned it. I went home that night to an apartment that finally felt like mine. Walls filled with things I chose. Silence that felt earned, not lonely. I poured a drink and sat by the window, watching the city move without me. Months earlier, I'd been called a pit stop, a phase, something temporary. But the truth was simpler. I wasn't temporary. I was just in the wrong place with the wrong person at the wrong time. And walking away wasn't a loss. It was the moment my life actually started.